Long before the first dinosaur drew breath, before the first tree stretched towards sunlight, before predators learned to chase and prey learned to flee, evolution was conducting experiments that would make modern biology professors weep in confusion. The ancient world was a laboratory without rules, a playground of biological impossibility, where nature threw together body plans that looked less like careful engineering and more like fever dreams scribbled on the back of a napkin during a cosmic brainstorming session. Picture this: worms walking on spines like living pincushions, fish wearing armor plates that locked together like medieval battle gear, sharks with ironing boards bolted to their backs, lizards gliding through Triassic skies on wings made from their own legs, backwards. Elephants wielding lower jaws shaped like literal shovels, slicing through saplings like prehistoric lumberjacks. These weren't the products of fantasy or artistic license. They were real animals, breathing, hunting, feeding, and surviving in ecosystems so alien they might as well have existed on another planet. Evolution doesn't care about looking normal. It doesn't follow aesthetic guidelines or worry about whether something makes visual sense. It only cares about one brutal question: does this work right now? And in the deep reaches of Earth's past, right now meant environments where the competition was sparse, the niches were wide open, and the evolutionary rulebook hadn't been written yet. So nature tried everything: stabbing mouths, vacuum cleaner trunks, zipper-shaped faces, anvil-topped heads, and bodies so bewildering that when scientists first discovered their fossils, they couldn't figure out which end was the head. These creatures dominated their worlds. They hunted, fed, reproduced, and thrived for millions of years. Then they vanished, leaving behind only stone impressions and fragments of bone that make us question everything we think we know about what's possible in the animal kingdom. Their designs were so specific, so finely tuned to environments that no longer exist, that when those worlds changed, the creatures couldn't adapt. Evolution moved on, never returning to those strange blueprints again. This is the story of life's wildest experiments, the biological one-offs, the evolutionary dead ends, the creatures so bizarre they make modern animals look boring by comparison. Every fossil tells the same haunting truth. Evolution tried this once, perfected it for a moment in deep time, then abandoned it forever. What remains are the ghosts of impossible animals that once ruled an Earth we can barely recognize. The walking nightmare, Hallucigenia's upside-down world. The Burgess Shale of British Columbia holds secrets so strange that when paleontologists first started pulling them from the rock in the early 1900s, they assumed the fossils were jokes. Among the most bewildering was a tiny worm-like creature bristling with spines, walking on what appeared to be soft, floppy tentacles. Scientists named it Hallucigenia because it looked like a biological hallucination, something your brain might generate during a high fever, not something that actually crawled across the Cambrian seafloor 500 million years ago. For 40 years, every reconstruction showed Hallucigenia upside down. Researchers thought it walked on rigid spines while waving its soft appendages in the water like bizarre feelers. This made a kind of twisted sense because Cambrian creatures were famously weird and poorly understood. The ocean floor back then was a carnival of experimental body plans, a time when evolution was throwing everything at the wall to see what stuck. Hallucigenia looked like it was trying to balance on stilts while juggling spaghetti. And in the context of the Cambrian explosion, that didn't seem entirely unreasonable. The truth emerged slowly. Better fossils from China in the 1990s revealed that those tentacles were actually legs equipped with tiny two-pronged claws. The rigid spines weren't legs at all, but defensive structures meant to protect the animal's soft back from predators. Scientists had been looking at the creature completely backwards, like trying to understand a car by staring at it upside down in a ditch. Even corrected, Hallucigenia remained deeply unsettling. It still looked like nothing alive today, a spiny, soft-bodied worm walking on pointed stilts through an alien ocean. Then came another revelation in 2015, when high-resolution imaging revealed tiny circular eyes on one end of the body, finally confirming which end was actually the head. Before that discovery, paleontologists thought the rounded tail was the front because it had no facial features whatsoever. The real head was so simple, so unremarkable, that it had been misidentified for decades. Once properly oriented, Hallucigenia's body plan became clearer, but no less strange. 7 pairs of walking legs underneath, 7 pairs of defensive spines on top, and a head so minimal it barely qualified as one. Hallucigenia belonged to the Lobopodians, early worm-like relatives of arthropods that experimented with soft bodies, stubby legs, and often bizarre external armour. During the Cambrian, predators were evolving rapidly, and anything soft-bodied needed protection. Hallucigenia's answer was a forest of sharp spines running down its back, a biological keep out sign that turned the animal into a mouthful of needles for anything trying to bite it. Predators like Anomalocaris, armed with grasping appendages and circular jaws, prowled the seafloor looking for easy meals. Hallucigenia's spines weren't flashy or elegant, but they worked. They kept the animal alive long enough to feed, reproduce, and leave behind fossils that would baffle scientists millions of years later. The legs themselves were marvels of simple engineering. Each one ended in a tiny claw structure made of 2 prongs, almost like miniature tongs. These weren't for grabbing prey. Hallucigenia was likely a gentle feeder, scraping bacteria or organic films from rocks and sediment. The claws helped anchor its soft body as it moved across rough surfaces, preventing it from being swept away by currents. Fossil evidence shows the legs varied in length from front to back, giving Hallucigenia an awkward, rocking gait. Imagine a walking toothbrush covered in spikes, moving in slow motion across the ocean floor. It would look absurd, but it would function. Recent discoveries in China have uncovered close relatives of Hallucigenia with even more detailed preservation, revealing simple sensory organs and a tubular mouth lined with tiny tooth-like structures. Inside the throat were additional rings of teeth forming a conveyor belt system that pulled food inward. This strange throat architecture links Hallucigenia to modern velvet worms, soft-bodied animals that still crawl through tropical forests today. Velvet worms use sticky glue to trap prey, but their internal mouth structure eerily resembles that of Hallucigenia, hinting at ancient shared origins stretching back 500 million years. What makes Hallucigenia feel so fake isn't just its shape. It's the combination of features that shouldn't coexist. Soft legs paired with sharp spines, a simple worm body equipped with precision claws, a head so plain it was mistaken for a tail. It's the biological equivalent of a rough draft with too many contradictory ideas crammed onto one creature. But during the Cambrian explosion, evolution was moving fast, experimenting without concern for aesthetic coherence or long-term viability. Hallucigenia survives in the fossil record not because it was typical, but because it was extreme. A snapshot of life trying out body plans that would never be repeated once the age of arthropods began in earnest. The five-eyed hunter, Opabinia's impossible design. Opabinia looked like someone designed an alien for a science fiction film and forgot to check if it made biological sense. It had 5 eyes mounted on stalks, a long flexible trunk ending in a claw, and a mouth positioned backwards underneath its body. When paleontologists first presented a reconstruction at a scientific conference in the 1970s, the audience laughed. They thought it was a joke. But Opabinia was real, and its fossils from the Burgess Shale proved that evolution's early experiments were far stranger than anyone had imagined. The Cambrian seas 505 million years ago were packed with bizarre life forms, but Opabinia stood out even in that crowd of weirdness. Its 5 eyes immediately grab attention, not just because there are so many, but because they sat on raised stalks that allowed nearly 360-degree vision. Most early animals relied on simple, light-detecting cells, but Opabinia could scan its surroundings in almost every direction simultaneously. This gave it a massive advantage in crowded competitive waters where predators and prey moved in 3 dimensions. Some researchers believe these stalked eyes could detect motion and light changes far better than most Cambrian organisms, making Opabinia both an effective hunter and a difficult target. The trunk is what makes Opabinia unforgettable. This long, flexible appendage extended from the front of the head, like a biological fishing rod, ending in a pincer-like claw that could grab prey. The mouth, bizarrely, faced backward and sat underneath the body. This arrangement seems impractical until you consider Opabinia's lifestyle. It likely lived along the seafloor, using its trunk to reach into burrows, pluck out soft-bodied worms, and pass them backward toward its hidden mouth. This feeding method has almost no modern equivalent, which is exactly why Opabinia feels so alien. Nothing alive today feeds quite like this. Opabinia's body added another layer of strangeness. Along its sides ran overlapping flaps that it waved in sequence to swim, similar to how modern cuttlefish move through water. A flexible fin or ridge ran along its back, helping stabilize it during movement. This combination of flapping lobes and dorsal control gave Opabinia better maneuverability than many of its contemporaries. Soft-bodied animals often struggled against strong currents, but Opabinia's engineering allowed it to dart, wriggle, and hover with surprising precision. It wasn't fast by modern standards, but in the slow-motion world of the early Cambrian, it didn't need to be. For decades, scientists struggled to figure out where Opabinia fit in the tree of life. Its body wasn't segmented like annelid worms, wasn't hardened like arthropods, and wasn't simple like early chordates. It existed in a frustrating evolutionary grey zone, a piece of a biological experiment that didn't lead anywhere. Modern analysis places Opabinia as a stem arthropod, an early branch that experimented with body plans before the arthropod blueprint became standardized. Its side flaps may represent proto-limbs, early versions of the segmented appendages that crabs, insects, and spiders would later refine into precise tools for walking, swimming, and manipulating objects. Opabinia also offers insight into how early predators adapted to a world full of soft, undefended prey. Before hard shells evolved widely, the ocean was full of worms, jellyfish-like creatures, and other squishy organisms that couldn't fight back effectively. A specialized grabbing trunk was perfect for this environment, precise, flexible, and capable of reaching into hiding spots. But once tougher exoskeletons became common, creatures like Opabinia lost their competitive edge. Its delicate body and specialized feeding method couldn't compete with the armored swimmers and more versatile hunters that evolved later. Despite lacking size, armor, or powerful jaws, Opabinia was an effective predator for its time. Its combination of stalked eyes, flexible trunk, and coordinated swimming made it a successful hunter in the early Cambrian seafloor ecosystem. But like many Cambrian species, its design didn't lead to a lasting lineage. After a few million years, Opabinia's evolutionary branch fizzled out, leaving behind fossils so bizarre that every rediscovery feels surreal. It represents a moment when evolution tried something radically different, perfected it briefly, then moved on to designs that would prove more durable over geological time. The shrimp that ate everything. Anomalocaris unveiled. Anomalocaris caused more scientific confusion than almost any other fossil ever discovered. For years, paleontologists thought they were looking at three separate animals. The mouth resembled a jellyfish. The grasping arms looked like the bodies of shrimp. The main body seemed to belong to yet another creature entirely. Only later did researchers realize these fragments all belonged to the same animal, the first true apex predator in Earth's history. Even properly reconstructed, Anomalocaris looks unreal, like something designed by a committee that couldn't agree on what an ocean predator should look like. Anomalocaris lived around 520 million years ago during the Cambrian explosion, a period when animal diversity was expanding at breakneck speed. But unlike most Cambrian organisms that were tiny, simple, and soft-bodied, Anomalocaris was massive, up to 1 meter long, making it a giant for its era. It swam through ancient oceans using undulating side lobes that worked like the wings of a manta ray, allowing smooth, efficient movement across the seafloor. This elegant swimming motion gave Anomalocaris a hunting advantage unmatched by anything else alive at the time. While other creatures crawled or drifted, Anomalocaris actively pursued its prey. The frontal appendages were the most distinctive feature. These paired arms curved forward and downward like massive shrimp tails, each lined with sharp spines designed to grab and hold struggling prey. Early reconstructions mistakenly identified these arms as separate shrimp-like creatures, which is how Anomalocaris got its name, abnormal shrimp. In reality, these appendages were powerful grasping tools that could seize prey, lift it off the seafloor, or drag it toward the waiting mouth. The arms were flexible enough to reach into crevices, but strong enough to hold onto slippery, thrashing animals. The mouth was one of the most misunderstood fossil discoveries in paleontology. Initially described as a separate jellyfish species, it turned out to be a circular jaw structure shaped like a pineapple slice with hard, overlapping plates arranged radially. Earlier reconstruction showed Anomalocaris crushing trilobite shells with this mouth, but studies suggest it functioned more like a flexible gripping device ideal for soft prey. The mouth could open wide, clamp down, and create suction that pulled food inward, a trait shared with modern cephalopods like squid and octopuses. Vision gave Anomalocaris another massive advantage. Fossils from Australia reveal compound eyes with up to 16,000 lenses each, comparable to or exceeding some modern dragonflies. For the Cambrian era, this was cutting-edge biological technology. While most animals relied on simple, light-detecting cells, Anomalocaris could see clearly, track movement, and differentiate objects at a distance. Its superior eyesight combined with its swimming prowess made it an elite hunter in a world where most organisms were slow, poorly defended, and half-blind. Anomalocaris belonged to the radiodonts, a diverse group of early arthropod relatives that experimented with different body plans long before insects, crustaceans, and spiders evolved. Radiodonts came in many sizes and shapes. Some were filter feeders with elaborate frontal structures for straining plankton. Some were scavengers, and some, like Anomalocaris, were active predators. Though they look alien by modern standards, radiodonts were key players in early marine ecosystems. They helped drive the evolutionary arms race that led to tougher shells, faster movement, and more complex sensory systems in later animals. The discovery of Anomalocaris fundamentally changed how scientists understood Cambrian life. Before its proper reconstruction, many researchers believed the Cambrian seas were gentle places filled with simple, passive organisms. Anomalocaris proved that predation was already sophisticated, that vision was already advanced, and that body sizes were already scaling up. It showed that the biological arms race between predator and prey was already underway 500 million years ago, setting the stage for everything that followed. The Tully Monster, Illinois' unsolvable puzzle. Tullimonstrum is the fossil equivalent of a biological riddle wrapped in an enigma, preserved in ancient mud. Found only in the Mazon Creek deposits of Illinois, this creature has a tube-shaped body, a paddle-like tail fin, eyes mounted on a rigid horizontal bar, and a long, flexible proboscis ending in a claw-like jaw. It looks like evolution assembled an animal without reading the instruction manual. Someone waking from a fever dream could probably sketch a sea monster that looks remarkably like Tullimonstrum, which is one reason it still feels fake. No living animal even remotely resembles it. The Tully monster lived roughly 300 million years ago during the Carboniferous period, when much of North America was covered in lush, swampy forests. While giant insects and early amphibians dominated the land, the shallow coastal waters hosted stranger creatures, and Tullimonstrum ranked among the strangest. Its body was entirely soft, lacking bones or hard armour, which is why its fossils are so rare. Only the unique chemical preservation conditions at Mazon Creek captured its form in exquisite detail. Without that single fossil site, we might never have known this animal existed. The proboscis is the first feature that grabs attention. This long appendage extended from the front of the body, ending in a pair of tiny jaws equipped with small tooth-like structures. These jaws appeared adapted for grabbing worms or small fish, but the feeding tool itself was unlike anything else in the fossil record. It could bend, curl, and reach almost like an elephant's trunk crossed with a mechanical pincer. Scientists still debate how much strength and control Tulamonstrum had over this appendage, but it clearly provided a unique way of interacting with prey and environment. Then there are the eyes, two round structures sitting on the ends of a stiff bar stretching across the top of the head, like biological headlights. This eye bar is one of Tulimonstrum's most iconic and bewildering features. Most animals place their eyes on the sides of their heads, on flexible stalks, or directly at the front. But the Tully monster positioned them wide apart on a rigid structure, giving it an appearance unlike any modern organism. These weren't simple, light-detecting organs either. Studies of preserved tissue show pigment-filled structures similar to those in vertebrate eyes, leading some scientists to argue that Tulimonstrum might be related to lampreys, jawless fish with simple backbones. For a brief period, paleontologists claimed the Tully monster might be an early vertebrate. The eye structure, certain features of the body, and the overall anatomy seem to support this interpretation. But not everyone agreed. Another group of experts argued that the supposed vertebrate traits were misinterpreted and that the animal might actually belong to soft-bodied invertebrates. Some suggested mollusk affinities. Others said it didn't fit any known group. A study from 2023 swung the pendulum back toward the non-vertebrate interpretation, reigniting the debate. This back and forth is one reason Tulimonstrum feels unreal. It refuses to fit neatly into evolution's family tree. The strange mix of features makes Tulimonstrum look assembled from spare parts. It has a body shape vaguely reminiscent of squid, eyes that resemble arthropod structures mounted on a bizarre bar, and a proboscis that looks like it belongs in science fiction. But this hodgepodge reflects a time in Earth's history when evolution was still experimenting with body plans long before modern groups settled into more conventional form. Many lineages that lived in Carboniferous seas left no descendants, so their bodies look alien to us because they didn't survive long enough to become familiar. The Tully monster remains one of paleontology's great mysteries. Every new study seems to shift the interpretation, and every reconstruction looks slightly different from the last. It's a reminder that the fossil record is full of animals so unusual, so outside our modern frame of reference, that we struggle to understand them even with all our technology and knowledge. Tulimonstrum tried a body plan that worked for a while in a specific environment, then disappeared forever when that environment changed. Evolution never circled back to that design. The Tully monster stands alone in deep time, unsolved and unforgettable. The zipper-mouthed reptile, Atopodentatus, reconstructed. When scientists first discovered Atopodentatus in China, they thought they'd found one of the strangest marine reptiles ever fossilized. The front of its face appeared to extend downward like a gardening rake, and early reconstruction showed it scraping algae off rocks by dragging this rake mouth along the seafloor like a reptilian bulldozer. The image was bizarre and unsettling, a creature that looked more like a failed prototype than a functional animal. But later discoveries revealed the initial reconstruction was completely wrong. The real head was even stranger. Atopodentatus had a mouth shaped like a sideways zipper. This zipper structure came from a set of interlocking teeth, forming a continuous comb along the upper and lower jaws. Instead of pointing forward, like in most reptiles, these teeth curved outward, creating a wide, horizontal slit. When Atopodentatus opened its mouth, the jaws spread apart like sliding doors. When it closed them, the teeth meshed perfectly, forming a filter-like structure ideal for straining plant matter from water. No other reptile, living or extinct, has a mouth even remotely like this. It's the kind of design you'd expect from an alien engineer working with a completely different understanding of biology. Atopodentatus lived around 245 million years ago, shortly after the worst mass extinction in Earth's history, the End Permian event, which wiped out more than 90% of marine species. Ecosystems were rebuilding from near total collapse, and new niches were opening everywhere. Evolution scrambled to fill every available gap, and Atopodentatus seems to have been part of that scramble. Its bizarre mouth wasn't for biting, chewing, or slashing prey. Instead, it was specialized for scraping algae and filtering plant matter, an unusual diet for a marine reptile in an era when most predators still dominated the seas. Fossil evidence shows the edges of its teeth were perfectly suited for scooping and straining. Microscopic wear patterns indicate Atopodentatus pressed its mouth against rocks or sediment, scraping algae and plant material into the zipper structure, then filtering out the edible parts while water flowed through. It functioned almost like a biological baleen whale crossed with an underwater vacuum cleaner. The cheek teeth farther back in the jaw were ridged and designed for grinding tougher vegetation, showing that Atopodentatus could process fibrous materials most reptiles couldn't digest. The body was more conventional, long, flattened, and equipped with strong limbs modified for paddling. Atopodentatus wasn't built for speed or deep diving. Instead, it likely cruised over shallow seafloor habitats, pressing its zipper mouth against surfaces to feed. Think of it as a reptilian cow grazing underwater meadows of algae. This feeding strategy could only evolve in a world where plant life flourished along coastlines. And that's exactly what the early Triassic provided. Algal mats spread across newly warmed oceans, creating perfect feeding grounds for a creature with a mouth designed for scraping and filtering. The combination of unusual traits makes Atopodentatus look impossibly fake. Most depictions of marine reptiles show sleek, predatory animals with sharp teeth and streamlined bodies built for chasing fish. Atopodentatus breaks that template entirely. It was a marine specialist that didn't hunt at all. It grazed like an enormous reptilian tadpole. The head shape is especially strange because the bones are thin, overlapping, and intricately arranged. CT scans reveal a complex lattice of plates forming the framework of the zipper mouth, utterly unlike other reptile skulls. This isn't a mouth you'd design if you were building a functional animal from scratch. It's a mouth that evolved under very specific selective pressures in a very specific environment. The corrected reconstruction published in 2014 sent shockwaves through paleontology because it demonstrated that early filter feeding in marine reptiles evolved independently, millions of years before whales adopted similar strategies. Atopodentatus was essentially a failed experiment in reptile herbivory, highly specialized but short-lived in geological terms. Once competition increased and marine ecosystems stabilized, more generalist feeders and true herbivorous reptiles outcompeted it. The zipper mouth may have been brilliant for its time, but poorly suited for long-term evolutionary success. Evolution tried this design once, refined it briefly, then abandoned it forever. The shark with an anvil on its head, Stethacanthus explained. Stethacanthus is a fossil shark that looks like someone added features at random until the design stopped making sense. It had a flat, anvil-shaped structure rising from its back, covered in tiny backward-pointing spines that made the surface rough, like industrial-grade sandpaper. No modern shark has anything like this. In fact, no other fish, living or extinct, has ever evolved this kind of dorsal structure. It's one of the clearest examples of evolution producing something that defies logic, hydrodynamics, and common sense, yet somehow worked well enough to persist for millions of years. Stethacanthus lived during the late Devonian and early Carboniferous periods, more than 300 million years ago. This was peak shark diversity, a time when shark evolution was exploding with experimental body plans. Instead of the sleek, torpedo-shaped hunters we recognize today, early sharks tried bizarre variations. Some had long, saw-like snouts. Others had unusual fin placements or heavy armor plating. But Stethacanthus took the prize for creativity with its dorsal pad, often called the ironing board, anvil, or platform by paleontologists who struggled to describe it without resorting to comparisons with household objects. The structure wasn't small or subtle. In many specimens, it spanned much of the shark's back and rose high above the body. Early scientists thought it might be used to scrape algae, anchor to the seafloor, or even function as a weapon during fights. But none of those ideas matched the anatomy. The pad was too fragile for ramming, lacked muscles for pressing down, and wasn't shaped for anchoring in currents or clinging to rocks. Instead, the surface was covered with modified denticles, tiny structures similar to shark scales, but shaped into backward-leaning spines. Under magnification, they resemble a field of hooks frozen in position. The current leading theory is that the anvil served as a display structure, likely related to mating. The pad was found only on males and positioned where other sharks approaching from behind or above could see it clearly. Some paleontologists believe Stethacanthus used the structure to signal dominance or readiness to mate, similar to how modern animals use colourful plumage, antlers, or inflated throat sacs. The spines may have reflected light underwater, creating a shimmering patch that other sharks could detect from a distance. If true, Stethacanthus was one of the first sharks to evolve ornamentation instead of weaponry, a strategy no shark has repeated since. Another idea suggests the spiny pad acted as a defensive bluff. When threatened, the shark could arch its back, presenting the sharp surface toward a predator's mouth. A bite to that area would be extremely unpleasant, potentially discouraging attacks. Some researchers think Stethacanthus may have hunched its body and lifted the anvil toward attackers, making itself appear larger and more dangerous. The exact behavior remains speculative, but the dual purpose of defense and display fits the fossil evidence better than earlier weapon-based theories. The rest of Stethacanthus was surprisingly ordinary. It had a streamlined body, well-developed fins, and a mouthful of teeth suited for catching small fish and invertebrates. It wasn't an apex predator. It lived in reefs and shallow seas where competition was fierce. While giant armoured fish and other early sharks battled for resources, Stethacanthus relied on agility and unusual adaptations rather than size or strength. The anvil may have helped males attract mates in crowded ecosystems full of visually similar species, giving them a reproductive edge even if they couldn't dominate through combat. The tail fin adds another layer of strangeness. Unlike the symmetrical crescent shape of modern fast-swimming sharks, Stethacanthus had an asymmetrical tail with an oddly shaped upper lobe. Combined with the drag created by the dorsal pad, this suggests Stethacanthus wasn't built for sustained chases. It likely moved in short bursts, using quick acceleration to navigate reefs and ambush small prey, rather than pursuing targets over long distances. The anvil would have created turbulence, making long-distance swimming inefficient. But for a reef-dwelling shark that relied more on maneuvering than speed, this trade-off may have been acceptable. The pancake fish with no jaws, Drepanaspis revealed. Drepanaspis looks like someone dropped a normal fish, stepped on it repeatedly, then decided that flattened version was good enough for millions of years of evolution. This Devonian fish was shield-shaped, jawless, and so absurdly flattened it resembled a living pancake hovering just above the seafloor. It lived more than 400 million years ago, but it still looks like a mistake that somehow made it through quality control long enough to fossilize. To make matters stranger, it swam in an orientation completely backwards compared to modern bottom-dwelling animals. Nothing about it resembles what we think a fish should look like. Drepanaspis belonged to the heterostracans, early jawless fishes that relied on heavy armor plates rather than speed, agility, or bite force for survival. These plates covered the head and front of the body, forming rigid shields that protected against predators. In Drepanaspis, the armor formed a broad, almost disc-like structure, Instead of a narrow head and streamlined body, it looked more like a flattened surfboard, with a tail awkwardly attached. The mouth was positioned on top of the body rather than underneath, which is the complete opposite of what you see in modern bottom-feeding fish, like rays, skates, or flatfish. This bizarre orientation is one reason paleontologists believe Drepanaspis spent most of its life gliding close to the seafloor while facing upward. Because Drepanaspis lacked jaws entirely, it couldn't bite, chew, or tear food. Instead, it is fed by sucking in tiny particles from the water column. The surface of its mouth and gill region featured grooves and channels that help filter food from sediment. The animal likely swam slowly, lifting itself just above the seabed and letting water flow over its filtration structures. In an ocean filled with armored predators, giant hunters, and early sharks, this quiet feeding strategy offered a safe niche where competition was minimal and danger manageable. The armor wasn't smooth or simple. Close inspection reveals the plates were covered in tiny arrow-shaped ridges that likely helped control water flow over the body. Some scientists think these ridges reduce drag, allowing Drepanaspis to glide more efficiently despite its flattened shape. Others believe they served sensory purposes, helping the animal detect vibrations from nearby predators or prey. Either way, the armor wasn't just protection. It was a multi-purpose tool engineered for life at the bottom of ancient seas. One of the strangest aspects of Drepanaspis is its complete lack of paired fins. Modern fish rely on pectoral and pelvic fins for steering, stability, and lift. Without them, Drepanaspis had to maintain balance using body shape and tail movement alone. It swam using lift generated by its wide, flat shield, which functioned like a hydrofoil. From above, it resembles a small aircraft with a tail-mounted engine. Though not fast, this design was stable, allowing the fish to hover close to the bottom without constantly sinking or rising uncontrollably. The tail was heterocercal, meaning the upper lobe was larger than the lower one. This is typical of many early fishes and produced upward thrust as the tail moved side to side. Combined with the flattened body, this helped Drepanaspis maintain its unusual upside-down orientation. The effect was a fish that seemed to fly just above the seabed, floating upward with each tail flick while using its armor plate to hang steady in the water column. It's a swimming strategy unlike anything in modern oceans. Fossils of Drepanaspis are exceptionally well preserved, with details so crisp that scientists can study the microscopic textures on its armor plates. That's how researchers discovered the fish swam in an inverted orientation compared to modern bottom dwellers. The positioning of the mouth, eyes, gill openings, and muscle attachment scars all point to this upside-down lifestyle. Modern rays have eyes on top and mouths underneath. Drepanaspis flipped that pattern completely, showing that early fish evolution produced configurations that often seem backward to modern eyes. The combination of features, flattened shape, upward-facing mouth, lack of jaws, complete absence of paired fins, makes Drepanaspis feel unreal. It doesn't resemble an ancestor of modern vertebrates. It looks like something from a child's imaginative drawing of ocean animals. But it was a genuine pancake fish that thrived in its time. It represents an evolutionary experiment from an era when fish were just beginning to explore different body shapes, defenses, and methods of locomotion. Evolution tried the pancake design, refined it for millions of years, then abandoned it once more versatile fish took over. The gliding lizard that flew backwards, Sharovipteryx's radical wings. Sharovipteryx is one of those ancient animals that makes you wonder if evolution accidentally shuffled its blueprints. Most flying animals develop wings on their front limbs. It's simple, effective, and makes intuitive sense. Sharovipteryx did the exact opposite. It evolved wings on its legs, with enormous membranes stretched between elongated hind limbs, while the front legs remained small and nearly useless for flight. The result was a lizard that looked like a badly folded paper airplane. Body in the middle, long wing-like legs trailing behind, and tiny arm membranes that function more as stabilizers than lifting surfaces. It's one of the strangest flight experiments evolution ever attempted. Sharovipteryx lived during the Middle Triassic, around 225 million years ago, long before birds, bats or pterosaurs dominated the skies. Flight was still an unexplored frontier, and evolution was testing radically different ideas to see what worked. Sharovipteryx belonged to protorosaurs, a group of long-necked, lightly built reptiles that experimented with unusual body shapes. Even within this strange family, Sharovipteryx stood out. Its hind limbs were extremely long and thin, with bones stretched far beyond normal proportions. These elongated legs supported large membranes that formed triangular wings when fully extended. Because the main wings were positioned behind the animal's center of mass, Sharovipteryx likely glided in a backward-oriented configuration, with its legs acting as the primary lifting surface while small forelimb membranes provided balance and steering. This is the complete reverse of modern gliding animals, like flying squirrels, sugar gliders, or colugos. Even pterosaurs and birds, which evolved later, used their arms as primary flight surfaces. But wind tunnel tests using model reconstruction show that the rear wing design could produce smooth, controlled gliding if the tail and forelimbs acted as stabilizers. The body was narrow, almost tube-like, built for minimal drag. Its tail was long and stiffened by internal rods that kept it straight during flight. The tail likely functioned like an airplane rudder, allowing the animal to adjust orientation mid-glide. Fossils show that hind limb membranes attached not just to the legs, but also partially to the tail, forming a delta wing shape similar to modern fighter jets. This wing configuration creates lift even at low speeds and provides excellent stability, suggesting Sharovipteryx was more than a clumsy experiment. It may have been a skilled glider in its environment. Lifestyle remains debated, but most paleontologists agree Sharovipteryx probably lived in forests or rocky cliff zones where controlled gliding offered survival advantages. It may have launched from tree trunks or high branches, spreading its leg wings to glide toward lower perches or the ground. Sharp claws and long limbs could have helped it cling to bark or climb vertical surfaces. Because it was small, roughly pigeon-sized, it didn't need massive gliding membranes to cover long distances. Its unusual design may have been ideal for short-range leaps or escaping predators in dense vegetation. The placement of flight structures is one reason Sharovipteryx looks so artificial. Modern expectations say wings should be on the arms, so leg-mounted wings feel inherently wrong. But this backwards wing design wasn't unprecedented in the Triassic. A close relative, Longisquama, evolved long feather-like scales along its back, another strange adaptation possibly related to gliding or display. During the Triassic, evolution tested many bizarre biomechanical solutions. Sharovipteryx represents one of the boldest experiments, and while it didn't lead to a lasting lineage, it proved that flight could evolve from unexpected body parts. The fossil of Sharovipteryx is unusually delicate, with impressions of soft tissue preserved around the hind limbs. These impressions confirm that membranes were large, structured, and not just loose skin flaps. The level of detail preserved allows scientists to see membrane edges, tail support structures, and limb proportions with remarkable clarity. This preservation makes it impossible to dismiss Sharovipteryx as a misinterpretation. It genuinely glided using its legs as wings. Sharovipteryx fascinates because it foreshadows ideas that would resurface millions of years later in early pterosaurs, some of which had hind limb and tail membranes contributing to flight. Sharovipteryx isn't a direct ancestor of pterosaurs, but its body plan shows that evolution experimented with multiple pathways to aerial locomotion before settling on the arm wing design that proved most effective. The backwards wing lizard stands as proof that evolutionary solutions can be far stranger than anything we design intentionally. The reptile with feathered scales, Longisquama's display. Longisquama looked like it belonged in a storybook illustration, not the Triassic fossil record. This small reptile, roughly pigeon-sized, was covered in long, feather-like structures rising from its back. These weren't true feathers like birds possess, nor were they spines in the conventional sense. They were elongated, flat, scale-based appendages that stood upright like ornamental sails. Each structure resembled a quill crossed with a palm frond. When scientists first examined the fossil, they thought it was fake because the preservation looked too good, too staged. But further study confirmed Longisquama was real, making it one of evolution's strangest fashion statements. Longisquama lived around 235 million years ago in what is now Kyrgyzstan, during a time when reptiles were experimenting wildly with body shapes and ornamentation. Unlike the large predators and armoured reptiles that would dominate later periods, Longisquama inhabited tropical forests filled with ferns, conifers, and early insects. Its body was lightly built with long limbs suited for climbing. It likely spent most of its time in trees, using sharp claws to cling to branches while searching for food. Its skull and teeth suggest it ate insects or plant material rather than hunting other animals. In many ways, Longisquama would have been unremarkable, except for the structures rising from its back. These bizarre appendages, called integumentary appendages by scientists, are the fossil's defining feature. Each structure was long and flat, with a central shaft and leaf-like lobes extending outward. Early interpretations in the 1970s thought they were arranged in pairs like wings, leading some scientists to suggest Longisquama might be connected to bird origins. That idea sparked immediate controversy. Critics argued the appendages weren't feathers at all, but specialized scales. Later, imaging confirmed they lacked the branching microstructure of true feathers, and instead resembled highly modified reptilian scales stretched into extreme shapes. Display is still the most likely explanation. Many modern reptiles communicate using colourful frills, crests, or inflatable throat sacs, especially during mating season. Longisquama's appendages may have evolved for similar purposes. In a dense forest, a row of tall, leaf-like scales would have been highly visible. They might have been brightly coloured or patterned. If males had larger appendages, they could have used them to attract mates or intimidate rivals. Longisquama may have been one of the first animals where sexual selection drove bodies towards strange, artistic extremes. The fossil itself is remarkable for preserving these delicate structures at all. Soft tissues rarely fossilize, but the site where Longisquama was discovered, known for exceptional preservation, captured the outline of scales in fine detail. That clarity has fueled decades of debate. Some paleontologists initially argued the scales belonged to plants or debris stuck to the fossil. But careful microscopic studies revealed clear attachment points on the spine and consistent growth patterns across multiple appendages. They were biological, they belonged to the animal, and they were genuinely bizarre. What makes Longisquama look fake today is the combination of features that don't match modern categories. The appendages are too flat to be spines, too structured to be simple skin flaps, and too leaf-like to be conventional scales. They exist in a transitional state that doesn't fit neatly into our existing framework. Early suggestions that Longisquama was ancestral to birds have been thoroughly debunked, but the fossil does demonstrate that reptiles were already modifying their integument for display and possibly aerodynamic efficiency long before birds or pterosaurs took flight. Longisquama represents a moment when evolution was testing ornamental structures in reptiles. It didn't lead to a major lineage or revolutionary body plan, but it shows that even 235 million years ago, animals were using visual display as a survival strategy. The feathered scales may have helped with gliding, thermoregulation, or camouflage, but their primary function was likely communication. Longisquama stood out in its forest environment, and that visibility may have been exactly the point. Evolution tried this elaborate scale design once, refined it briefly in one lineage, then abandoned it forever. The smiling reptile. With a double life, Nothosaurus explained. Nothosaurus looks too well designed, too polished, almost like a computer-generated model rather than a genuine Triassic reptile. With its long, tooth-lined grin, streamlined body, and limbs halfway between legs and flippers, it seems like an animal that couldn't decide what it wanted to be. In a way, that's exactly what it was. Nothosaurus lived a double life, part of its time on land, part in water. It hunted in shallow coastal zones while still being able to haul out onto beaches and rocky shores. Its skull has a vaguely friendly appearance, and its amphibious lifestyle makes it one of the strangest early marine reptiles ever discovered. Nothosaurus lived around 240 million years ago during the Middle Triassic, long before dinosaurs rose to dominance and millions of years before true marine reptiles like plesiosaurs took over the oceans. It belonged to sauropterygians, a group that would later give rise to the long-necked plesiosaurs that dominated Mesozoic seas. But while its descendants committed fully to aquatic life, Nothosaurus remained transitional, experimenting with marine existence while keeping ties to land. Its body tells that story clearly, a streamlined torso for swimming, but limbs that retained functional joints and claws for walking on shore. The most striking feature is the head. Long and narrow, it ended in a V-shaped snout lined with sharp, recurved teeth that interlocked when the mouth closed. This gave Nothosaurus a permanent grin that looks almost cheerful until you realize those teeth were perfect for grabbing slippery prey. The teeth angled inward, preventing fish or squid from wriggling free once caught. This tooth structure appears in many modern aquatic predators, but Nothosaurus was one of the earliest reptiles to evolve it. Its jaws were lightweight, but built for rapid snapping motions, ideal for quick strikes in shallow water where speed mattered more than crushing power. Eyes sat high on the head, suggesting Nothosaurus hunted from just below the surface, peering upward or forward as it stalked prey. Fossils show attachments for strong jaw muscles, meaning it could close its jaws quickly, even if bite force wasn't extremely powerful. This matches a lifestyle of rapid grabs rather than prolonged wrestling. Nothosaurus ambushed fish in short bursts of speed rather than engaging in drawn-out struggles. Swimming mechanics were unusual. Later, marine reptiles developed stiff flippers that acted like underwater wings, providing efficient thrust. Nothosaurus still had limbs with defined joints, meaning its paddling motion combined both limb strokes and body undulation. It likely swam with lateral movements similar to crocodiles, using its tail and torso to generate thrust, while the limbs provided steering and stability. This mixed swimming strategy reflects how early this experiment was. Nature hadn't settled on a perfect aquatic blueprint yet. The ability to move on land also shaped behaviour. Nothosaurus probably basked on rocks or beaches, much like modern seals, using terrestrial refugees to escape aquatic predators, rest safely, and regulate body temperature. Fossil trackways from Triassic shorelines show footprints resembling those of semi-aquatic reptiles, possibly related species. Being able to exit water allowed Nothosaurus to lay eggs on land, a reproductive strategy it likely inherited from terrestrial ancestors. But this double life came with trade-offs. In water, functional limb joints created drag. On land, a long body and semi-webbed feet made walking awkward. One fascinating debate centres on whether Nothosaurus hunted cooperatively. Large bone beds preserve multiple individuals together, suggesting some species lived in groups. If true, these animals may have coordinated to chase schools of fish or forage along coastlines as loose packs. Reptiles rarely hunt cooperatively today, but it's not impossible. Crocodiles and monitor lizards occasionally work together. If Nothosaurus engaged in even simple group hunting, it would represent social behavior in reptiles emerging millions of years earlier than previously thought. Nothosaurus challenges our expectations of what marine reptiles should look like. Most depictions show either fully aquatic animals with flippers or fully terrestrial animals with legs. Nothosaurus was stuck in between, and that in-between state is exactly what makes it feel unreal. It was genuinely amphibious, genuinely transitional, and genuinely successful for millions of years. Evolution tried this double life strategy, refined it in multiple species, then eventually abandoned it as fully aquatic forms proved more efficient. The reptile with a giraffe, neck Tanystropheus unveiled. Tanystropheus looks like someone stretched its neck in photo editing software, then forgot to undo the change. Its neck was 3 times longer than its body and trunk combined, composed of extremely elongated vertebrae so thin and fragile that early paleontologists thought they belonged to a massive flying reptile. For decades, scientists didn't know what to make of the fossils. The bones were too long, too delicate, too improbable. Researchers didn't piece together the truth about Tanystropheus until much later. It was a Triassic animal with a giraffe-like neck and a lizard-like body. The strangest part? That neck couldn't bend. It was almost completely rigid. Tanystropheus lived around 240 million years ago along the coastlines of what is now Europe and the Middle East. Its world was filled with shallow seas, complex shorelines, and reef-like environments where small fish and squid thrived. That's where Tanystropheus found its ecological niche. Instead of actively chasing prey or diving deep, it used its absurdly long neck like a biological fishing rod. It kept its body hidden closer to shore or along the seafloor and extended its neck out into open water, snapping up prey with minimal body movement. This stealth fishing strategy allowed it to feed while keeping most of its body concealed from both predators and prey. The neck vertebrae are some of the strangest bones in the entire fossil record. Each vertebra could exceed 20 centimeters in length and featured tall neural spines with internal struts reinforcing the structure like a bridge truss. These reinforcements prevented the neck from collapsing or bending excessively under its own weight. Contrary to popular imagination, Tanystropheus couldn't twist its neck like a snake or crane it around like a swan. Instead, the neck functioned more like a semi-rigid rod, stable, strong, and suited for careful, controlled movements. This rigidity meant the animal had to position its entire body precisely to strike at prey, using torso orientation rather than neck flexibility. The skull was narrow and filled with sharp teeth curved inward to grip slippery prey. Some species had needle-like teeth perfect for catching small fish. Others had more robust dentition, suggesting they hunted crustaceans or cephalopods. This variation hints at multiple species within the genus, each adapted to slightly different feeding strategies. Recent fossils reveal 2 distinct size classes: a small-bodied version and a giant species reaching 6 meters in total length. Both sizes shared the same absurd neck design, showing that evolution doubled down on this bizarre structure rather than abandoning it. For decades, scientists debated whether Tanystropheus was primarily terrestrial or aquatic. Its limbs were strong enough to support body weight on land, and the overall design wasn't fully streamlined for swimming. But the neck length made walking awkward, and balancing such an elongated structure on land seems impractical. The breakthrough came from CT scanned skulls showing nostril and eye arrangements, adapted for aquatic hunting, similar to modern crocodiles. The animal likely spent most of its time in water or at the water's edge, lunging its long neck forward while keeping its body stationary. The imbalance in Tanystropheus's proportions makes it look fake. Most animals with long necks, sauropod dinosaurs, giraffes, plesiosaurs, have large bodies to counterbalance. Tanystropheus didn't. It had a relatively small torso, average-sized limbs, and a tail that wasn't particularly long. If you drew it to scale, the neck would look like it should topple the animal forward. Yet this creature thrived for millions of years. It wasn't poorly designed. It was designed for a very specific lifestyle where precision mattered more than speed or strength. Tanystropheus represents one of evolution's boldest experiments in vertebrate body proportions. The elongated neck allowed access to prey other animals couldn't reach, while minimizing energy expenditure and exposure to danger. But that specialization came at a cost. When environments changed or competition increased, Tanystropheus's extreme morphology became a liability. The design was too specific, too unusual to adapt to new conditions. Evolution tried the fishing rod neck, perfected it briefly, then moved on to more versatile predators. The 8-limbed sea crawler, Pandalurion's dual design. Pandalurion looks like evolution couldn't decide whether to make an animal that swam, crawled, or did something in between, so it made all three simultaneously. Picture an organism with 8 stubby legs on its underside, undulating fins along its sides, a soft tapered body, and a circular mouth ringed with teeth resembling a pineapple slice. It used different limb sets for crawling versus swimming, switching between locomotion modes like a modern robot alternating between wheels and thrusters. Like many Cambrian animals, it feels more like a prototype than a finished product. Pandalurion lived around 518 million years ago during the Cambrian explosion, a period when life was diversifying at breakneck speed and animal bodies were still highly experimental. It belonged to radiodonts, the same group as the larger, more famous Anomalocaris. But while Anomalocaris was built for speed and active predation, Pandalurion occupied a different ecological role, something between a benthic crawler and a filter feeder. Fossils from Greenland preserve it with incredible detail, showing both soft tissues and limb arrangements, a rarity for creatures this ancient. The body was elongated and flexible, equipped with 2 completely different kinds of appendages. Along the underside were 8 lobopod-like legs, soft, stubby structures equipped with tiny claws. These legs allowed crawling along the seafloor, digging into sediment, or gripping uneven surfaces. But along the sides were wide, fin-like flaps arranged in overlapping rows. These flaps undulated in sequence, creating the rippling motion seen in modern cuttlefish. When Pandalurion swam, these flaps generated lift and thrust, letting the animal glide smoothly through water. No other Cambrian creature combined crawling legs and swimming flaps so seamlessly. The head was equally bizarre. Instead of jaws, Pandalurion had a circular mouth made of curved tooth plates. These hooked inward, forming a ring of serrated structures that could grip or scrape food. The pineapple slice mouth appears in many radiodonts, but Pandalurion's version was less developed than in predatory cousins. Instead of tearing prey apart, it may have sucked up organic material or small organisms from water or sediment. This interpretation fits with the structure of its head appendages, short, spined arms better suited for sifting and scooping than grabbing large, struggling prey. Another clue to feeding style comes from size. Pandalurion was smaller than apex radiodonts, likely less than a foot long. Its body lacked the heavy musculature of active predators, and its flaps were adapted for slow, steady swimming rather than explosive bursts. Many scientists believe it lived a peaceful lifestyle, drifting above the seafloor and picking through soft sediment. Others suggest it used arms and legs together to disturb substrates, then vacuumed up whatever tiny organisms floated free. The pineapple ring mouth would have been perfect for this gentle suction feeding. One of the most fascinating aspects of Pandalurion is what it reveals about arthropod origins. Its lobopod legs and flap-like locomotion structures place it in a transitional zone between earlier worm-like animals and later arthropods, with hard exoskeletons and jointed limbs. Though Pandalurion lacked a hard shell, its segmented body and paired appendages show evolution experimenting with the concept of serialized limbs. This was a time when nature was transitioning from soft-bodied worms to the hard-shelled arthropods that would eventually dominate Earth's ecosystems. The mix of traits makes Pandalurion look unreal by modern standards. Animals today tend to specialize. Fish have fins, worms have simple bodies, filter feeders have specific mouth structures. Pandalurion had all these features simultaneously. If you were designing a functional organism from scratch, you probably wouldn't give it 8 crawling legs, swimming flaps, a suction mouth, and spined feeding arms. It looks over-engineered in some areas and underdeveloped in others. But in the Cambrian, this combination worked. There were no direct competitors in these ecosystems, so unusual forms could thrive simply because nothing else was trying the same strategy. The giant with scythe claws, Therizinosaurus, explained. Therizinosaurus looks like it was designed by 3 different artists who never communicated. It had the body shape of an enormous ostrich covered in shaggy feathers, claws longer than swords, and a potbelly like a giant sloth. It stood up to 5 meters tall, making it taller than most predators of its time. Yet it was a peaceful herbivore that relied on intimidation more than violence. If you saw it in a movie, you might think the designers went too far, but this bizarre creature was real, and its fossils remain some of the strangest ever discovered. The claws grab attention immediately. Each one stretched nearly 1 meter long, longer than a human arm, and curved like a giant scythe blade. These weren't delicate structures, but thick, powerfully anchored weapons, or tools. They sat on forearms packed with strong tendons capable of pulling with enormous force. While early theories suggested these claws were used for slicing prey, scientists now know Therizinosaurus wasn't hunting anything. Instead, the claws functioned as combination tools, gardening implements, and defensive weapons. The dinosaur could hook branches, pull down entire shrubs, or rake through dense foliage. And if a predator came too close, perhaps a hungry Tarbosaurus, it could swing those claws in wide arcs like natural sabers, creating a defensive zone no carnivore wanted to cross. The large belly is another feature that seems almost comical. Therizinosaurus had one of the widest rib cages of any theropod dinosaur. This massive torso wasn't about strength or intimidation. It was entirely about digestion. The animal needed an enormous gut to break down fibrous plants, much like modern elephants and sloths. While carnivorous cousins had narrow bodies built for sprinting, Therizinosaurus carried the proportions of a gentle browser that spent days stripping leaves and chewing vegetation. Yet despite size and bulk, its legs were surprisingly long, and it may have been capable of moving with slow, steady strides that covered ground efficiently. The head, in stark contrast, was tiny compared to the rest of the body. It held a narrow, toothless beak, suited for cropping leaves rather than biting flesh. Some fossils, from related species, show simple, leaf-shaped teeth farther back in the jaw, suggesting Therizinosaurus may have used a combination of beak-based clipping and minor chewing. But nothing about the skull hints at predatory behavior. The eyes face sideways rather than forward, indicating it relied more on watching for danger than tracking prey. This head-body mismatch is part of what makes the animal look so unreal. Giant dinosaurs usually have giant skulls, not heads small enough to look misplaced. Feathers add another layer of strangeness. Though no direct feather impressions of Therizinosaurus have been found, close relatives preserve evidence of downy, hair-like feathers covering most of the body. These feathers weren't for flight, but for insulation, temperature regulation, and possibly display. Some paleontologists think males may have had brightly coloured patches or distinctive patterns on their feathers to attract mates. Imagine a massive, pot-bellied giant with enormous claws and fluffy plumage. It looks like something assembled by accident, but every feature made sense in its environment. Therizinosaurus lived in the Nemeg Formation of Mongolia, a landscape filled with apex predators, river valleys, sand dunes, and forested areas. It shared its world with Tarbosaurus, Velociraptor relatives, and long-necked sauropods. Being herbivorous in a predator-rich ecosystem required strategy. Therizinosaurus didn't run fast, didn't hide effectively, and didn't attack like a hunter. Instead, it relied on size, intimidation, and the lethal threat of those claws. One well-aimed swing could cripple or kill even the largest carnivore. Many scientists compare its strategy to modern herbivores like moose or cassowaries, relatively calm until threatened, then alarmingly dangerous. The combination of features makes Therizinosaurus feel impossible. Giant ostrich-like body, potbelly, tiny head, massive claws, and feathers. Each trait seems to belong to a different animal. But in the late Cretaceous ecosystems of Asia, this design worked perfectly. Therizinosaurus was a successful herbivore that survived alongside some of the most dangerous predators ever to walk the earth. Evolution tried this bizarre herbivore blueprint, refined it in the Therizinosaur family, then abandoned it entirely when the Cretaceous ended. The hell pig. That wasn't a pig, Archaeotherium explained. Archaeotherium is one of those ancient animals that looks fake even when perfectly reconstructed in museums. It resembled a predator that woke up on the wrong side of the Cenozoic era. Its body was built like an oversized pig, its legs like a deer's, and its jaws like a crocodile's. It wasn't even remotely a pig, despite being called the hell pig. Instead, it belonged to entelodonts, a group of mammals more closely related to hippos and whales than to anything that oinks today. Imagine a feral pig remade by a horror artist with a demon's head. That's essentially what Archaeotherium looked like. It lived roughly 37 to 30 million years ago during the Oligocene, when North America's open plains were filled with early horses, primitive rhinos, giant predatory birds, and nimble mammals trying to survive in newly forming grassland ecosystems. Archaeotherium stood right in the middle of that chaos. It could reach more than 6 feet tall at the shoulder, with massive jaws lined with crushing teeth and long canines used for fighting, displays, and ripping apart food. The bite was powerful, but skull shape hints at something more complex. This animal wasn't a pure carnivore or pure herbivore. It was an omnivorous opportunist, and that made it unpredictable. One of the strangest features is the set of bony flanges on the sides of its lower jaw. These ridge-like growths look like armor plates or oversized cheekbones. Scientists believe they anchored strong jaw muscles, letting Archaeotherium bite down with enormous force. But these flanges may have also played roles in dominance displays. Skull shape suggests adults may have slammed heads together or shoved rivals during fights, much like modern musk oxen. This makes Archaeotherium not just a predator, but also a social fighter, using intimidation to maintain territory or hierarchy within groups. Teeth reveal even more peculiarity. The canines were large, like those of a saber-toothed predator, but the molars were flat and grinding like those of a herbivore. This combination suggests a take-what-you-can-get lifestyle. Fossil bite marks on bones of large prey animals show it scavenged and possibly hunted. Coprolites associated with entelodonts contain a wide variety of materials, from bone fragments to plant matter. Some paleontologists think Archaeotherium may have hunted like a prehistoric hyena with pig-like traits, chasing down young or weak animals, stealing kills from other predators, and eating virtually anything edible it could find. Despite its size and fearsome appearance, Archaeotherium was surprisingly fast. Long legs and lightweight bones indicate it could run down prey across open ground. Early horses like Mesohippus would have struggled to outrun it. Some reconstructions show Archaeotherium sprinting at speeds comparable to to modern wolves. For an animal that looked bulky and awkward, this speed made it even more dangerous. Prey couldn't simply escape by fleeing. Archaeotherium also had a highly developed sense of smell based on its enlarged nasal cavity. This would have helped it track carcasses or follow herds across long distances. In a landscape full of competition, a good nose meant more food and more opportunities. Hearing may have been sharp as well, judging from inner ear structure, providing an early warning system in a world filled with predators, giant birds, and other entelodonts. It's also notable that trackways and well-preserved bone beds at fossil sites suggest group behaviour. Archaeotherium may have travelled in loose family groups rather than tight packs like wolves. If they lived socially, they would have been even more frightening, especially when scavenging or intimidating other predators. Imagine a group of hell pigs stampeding across plains, each one swinging a massive head like a weapon. It's easy to see why these animals were so dominant in their environments. The combination of pig-like body, deer-like legs, crocodile-like jaws, bony flanges, mixed dentition, and possible social behaviour makes Archaeotherium feel unreal. It doesn't fit neatly into modern categories of predator, scavenger, or herbivore. It was all three, switching strategies based on opportunity. Evolution tried this omnivorous giant design, refined it in the entelodont family for millions of years, then abandoned it as more specialized predators and herbivores took over. The shovel-tusk elephant, Platybelodon revealed. Platybelodon reconstructions often make people think paleontologists are joking because the animal looks so improbable. It resembled someone flattened its lower jaw into a scoop-shaped shovel blade. Its body was built like an early elephant, but its tusks were nothing like modern elephants. Platybelodon's lower tusks were flattened into broad, bony structures with sharp enamel edges. Upper tusks pointed downward and met the shovel to form a cutting edge. This bizarre arrangement looked fake, like something designed for a cartoon construction site, but it was real and highly functional. Platybelodon lived during the Miocene, around 15 million years ago, when vast wetlands and river valleys stretched across Africa, Asia, and North America. Its environment was filled with reeds, soft-wooded trees, and thick vegetation, and Platybelodon evolved to exploit these plant-rich landscapes. Its shovel-tusk design wasn't just for show, it was a powerful feeding tool. For decades, scientists thought it used lower tusks like a scoop to shovel mud and aquatic plants into its mouth. This idea persisted because the jaw shape looks exactly like a spoon. But new dentalware studies completely changed the interpretation. Microscopic scratches on Platybelodon's flat tusks show it didn't scoop soft plants, it chopped wood. Researchers now believe Platybelodon used lower tusks like giant pruning shears. It would grip branches with its trunk, brace the branch against the shovel-like jaw, then slice through by snapping upper tusks down like blades. Think of it as a living tree trimmer. This chopping behaviour explains sharp edges and heavy wear patterns found on fossil jaws. It wasn't a gentle grazer, it was a destructive browser that left shredded saplings in its wake. The trunk was integral to this process. Though not as long or flexible as modern elephant trunks, it was still capable of grasping, pulling, and manipulating plants. Some studies suggest it may have had a split tip, enabling pincer-like grips. This helped Platybelodon position twigs and branches more accurately before cutting. The teeth matched this lifestyle. Back molars were ridged and perfect for grinding fibrous wood. Platybelodon was built to process tougher materials than modern elephants, which mostly chew grasses and leaves. The rest of the body was more recognizable. Platybelodon stood about 8 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed several tons. Legs were sturdy, built for supporting a heavy head and jaw. Its posture was elephant-like, and it likely lived in herds similar to modern elephants. Fossil sites often contain remains of multiple individuals, hinting at social behaviour. Group living would have protected calves from predators like saber-toothed cats and large crocodiles, which were common in its habitats. Despite the bizarre face, Platybelodon was well adapted to changing Miocene environments. As forests expanded and river systems spread, there was abundant vegetation to slice and chew, but specialization eventually became a problem. When climates dried and grassland spread, animals that could graze tougher grasses thrived. Platybelodon, with its wood-cutting jaw, was locked into a feeding style that didn't match new ecosystems. The shovel jaw became a disadvantage, and its lineage faded as more flexible elephant species took over. Nothing alive today resembles Platybelodon, which is one reason it looks unreal. No other animal uses its lower jaw as a tool in this extreme way. Even extinct elephant relatives had strange tusks, but nothing as dramatic as this shovel design. Modern eyes perceive the proportions as wrong. The shovel is too wide, the upper tusks point in the wrong direction, and the jaw shape seems impossible to use effectively. But wear patterns and jaw mechanics prove it was both precise and powerful. Platybelodon represents one of evolution's boldest experiments in elephant feeding adaptations. The shovel tusk design allowed access to food sources other herbivores couldn't exploit, but that extreme specialization limited long-term survival. When environments changed, Platybelodon couldn't adapt quickly enough. Evolution tried this wood-chopping elephant, perfected it briefly, then moved on to more generalized feeders that could survive in changing landscapes. The saber-toothed marsupial, Thylacosmilus, explained. Thylacosmilus is a fossil that looks so strange, many people assume the skeletons were assembled incorrectly. The skull had an extremely odd shape, with enormous bony sheaths rising from the lower jaw to protect saber-like fangs that grew continuously from the upper jaw. The sabers themselves were massive, curved and sharp like a smilodon's, but the way they grew was utterly unique. They were ever-growing teeth that pushed downward out of the skull in a manner no other animal has ever replicated. Despite superficial resemblance to saber-toothed cats, Thylacosmilus wasn't a cat at all. It was a marsupial. It lived around 6 to 3 million years ago in South America, which at the time was an isolated continent full of unique predators, prey, and evolutionary experiments. The ecosystem included terror birds, giant ground sloths, armored glyptodonts, and early hoofed mammals. Thylacosmilus had to compete in a world with predators that didn't behave like anything alive today. Its unusual skull wasn't a mistake. It was a response to this ecosystem where speed, precision, and stealth mattered more than raw power. The saber-teeth are the defining feature. Unlike Smilodon's closed-rooted sabers that stopped growing once fully formed, Thylacosmilus's sabers were open-rooted, meaning they grew continuously like rodent incisors. If they broke or chipped, they could regenerate. But this came at a cost. The roots extended so far up the skull, they curved over the top of the head, forming a massive crest. This crest anchored powerful neck muscles, giving Thylacosmilus incredible downward striking force. It didn't bite like a big cat. It drove its head downward like a precision tool. Then there are the jaw flanges. These weren't soft tissues, but solid bone walls rising from the lower jaw to protect the long, fragile sabers. When the mouth closed, the sabers slid neatly inside the flanges like knives going into scabbards. This protection kept teeth from breaking during hunting or while tackling struggling prey. But flanges also limited how wide the jaw could open. To compensate, Thylacosmilus evolved a different biting style, a narrower, downward stabbing motion powered mostly by neck muscles rather than jaw strength. Body shape was another strange twist. Thylacosmilus didn't have the heavy, muscular build of big cats. It had long, flexible limbs and a lighter frame. Its chest was narrow and shoulders were built for pulling rather than delivering heavy blows. This suggests an ambush strategy, getting close, grabbing prey with forelimbs, and delivering rapid, precise throat strikes with sabers. Some scientists think it may have hunted smaller or slower animals than Smilodon did, relying on accuracy rather than overpowering strength. Vision is another peculiarity. CT scans of the brain case show Thylacosmilus didn't have forward-facing eyes like most predators. Instead, eyes were positioned more laterally, reducing stereoscopic depth perception. To compensate, the skull twisted eye sockets slightly to maintain some visual field overlap. This strange arrangement has confused paleontologists for years. Why would an apex predator have sideways-facing eyes? One theory suggests it tracked prey through dense vegetation where peripheral vision was more useful. Another idea proposes that massive saber roots physically push eye sockets outward, creating a less than optimal but functional arrangement. Thylacosmilus also represents one of evolution's most extreme examples of convergent evolution. Two unrelated animals, marsupials and placental cats, both independently evolving saber-teeth for similar hunting strategies. But Thylacosmilus took the concept further than any cat ever did. Its open-rooted fangs, jaw flanges and skull crest were unique solutions no other predator attempted before or since. It wasn't copying the saber-tooth blueprint, it was writing its own version with marsupial biology. The mismatches with modern forms make Thylacosmilus look fictional, continuously growing sabers, bone sheaths protecting them, a skull shaped like a puzzle box, eyes positioned strangely, and a body built for stealth rather than strength. It looks like three different animals' parts were assembled by an artist, but each component served a function. Thylacosmilus was a successful predator for millions of years, then disappeared when placental carnivores from North America migrated south and outcompeted it. Evolution tried this marsupial saber-tooth, perfected it briefly, then abandoned the design forever. The armoured fish with a guillotine jaw, Dunkleosteus, explained. Few extinct animals still look terrifying as skeletons, but Dunkleosteus is one of them. Its head consisted of massive armour plates fitting together like a medieval helmet. Its jaws were two sharpened bone blades operating like a guillotine, and muscle attachment studies suggest bite force may have been among the strongest of any fish ever. Yet Dunkleosteus had no teeth whatsoever. Instead, it used self-sharpening jaw blades formed as bone plates ground against each other over time. The edges became more lethal with each bite. It was a living weapon system that evolved long before sharks dominated the seas. This giant placoderm lived about 370 million years ago during the Devonian, often called the Age of Fishes. Oceans back then were filled with armoured swimmers, early sharks, bizarre lobe-finned fish, and soft-bodied prey that had never encountered a predator this powerful. Dunkleosteus reached up to 9 meters long, with a head so heavily armoured it resembled a tank rolling through water. But behind that tank-like exterior was a body that remains almost entirely unknown. Because its back half was made of cartilage instead of bone, it rarely fossilised. For years, artists guessed what Dunkleosteus looked like from the neck down, sometimes streamlined like a tuna, other times thick and bulky like a shark. New studies suggest it may have had a broad, muscular midsection supporting rapid lunges, making it a burst-hunting predator rather than a long-distance swimmer. Jaws work differently from anything alive today. Dunkleosteus used a 4-bar linkage system, similar to mechanisms in some modern fish, to snap jaws open with incredible speed. This allowed it to create suction that pulled prey forward, then slammed jaws shut in a fraction of a second. The closing force is what made Dunkleosteus truly terrifying. Models show it could exert enough power to slice through bone, armour, and even other placoderms. Fossils of prey species often show bite marks carved cleanly through protective plates, like someone cut them with metal shears. Damaged Dunkleosteus armour is one of the oddest pieces of evidence. Some fossils bear deep bite marks in their plates, matching the jaw shape of the species itself. This suggests Dunkleosteus may have fought others of its own kind. Whether this was aggression, mating-related combat, or cannibalism remains unclear, but it paints a picture of a dangerous predator from which not even conspecifics were safe. Feeding habits were equally dramatic. Dunkleosteus likely targeted anything slower, softer, or less armoured than itself. Early sharks, ammonoids, bony fish, and even other armoured species were on the menu. Its suction-powered strike meant prey didn't have time to escape. The blade jaws then carved meals into chunks that could be swallowed whole. Nothing in modern oceans quite compares. Sharks rip, crocodiles crush. But Dunkleosteus sliced with bone blades faster than most animals could react. Another detail that makes this creature feel unreal is armour design. Unlike modern fish, Dunkleosteus didn't have scales on its head or neck. Instead, it wore layered plates that locked together but still allowed movement. These plates formed a natural shield, protecting the most vulnerable body parts while providing strength needed for powerful jaw mechanisms. Plates even show growth rings similar to tree trunks, helping scientists estimate age and determine growth patterns. The lack of fossilised soft tissue has led to confusion about swimming mechanics. Some reconstructions show it as a fast, powerful hunter, like a great white shark. Others suggest it was more of an ambush predator, using short, explosive movements rather than sustained speed. Recent biomechanical studies lean toward the second idea. Dunkleosteus likely patrolled reefs or deeper waters, holding still until targets passed within striking distance, then exploding forward with its armoured head leading the charge. The mix of heavy armour, blade-like jaws, and mysterious posterior anatomy makes Dunkleosteus look unreliable. It resembles a combination of a tank, a shark, and a nightmare machine. The head alone looks designed rather than evolved, but every element served a function. It was the result of millions of years of evolutionary arms races in armoured seas. Evolution tried this armoured super predator design, dominated Devonian oceans with it, then abandoned it entirely when the placoderm lineage went extinct.